Amid the tense Trump-Xi meeting in South Korea during the APEC summit, China decided to strengthen its position rather than wait for the outcome. While Washington came armed with new tariff threats, Beijing quietly rolled out fresh export restriction rules, targeting the world's most critical materials: rare earths. It was a clear message: control the supply chain, and you control the game. Behind every electric car, smartphone, and missile guidance system lie these metals that China almost entirely dominates. And as the US tried to isolate it, Beijing deepened ties with its neighbors, signing an upgraded trade pact with ASEAN that could redraw Asia's economic map. The move wasn't just defensive, it was strategic, combining pressure with partnership. As global markets watched the summit, China was already shaping the next chapter of trade, one where influence flows quietly but powerfully eastward. Rare earth elements are the invisible foundation of modern technology. They're buried deep in smartphones, electric vehicles, wind turbines, and missile systems, tiny quantities that make the modern world possible. These 17 metals don't sound dramatic: neodymium, dysprosium, yttrium. Yet without them, entire industries would grind to a halt. And China, through decades of investment and control, dominates this hidden market, producing nearly 70% of the world's mined rare earths and refining about 90% of global supply. That dominance didn't happen by chance. While other nations treated rare earths as raw materials, China built a full ecosystem, from mining and refining to magnet manufacturing and recycling. Today, Chinese companies supply the permanent magnets that spin electric vehicle motors, drive wind turbines, and guide precision weapons. Control over this chain is strategic power in its purest form. So when Beijing expanded its export restrictions on October 9, 2025, it wasn't just an economic measure, it was a signal. The new rules, published under announcement number 61, introduced a sweeping licensing system for rare earth materials, technologies, and manufacturing equipment. Every foreign buyer now requires approval from the Ministry of Commerce. Licenses can be denied if the end use is linked to defense, advanced semiconductors, or dual-use technologies. Even more striking, the new regime includes an FDPR-style clause, the same mechanism the US used against China in the chip war. It extends Chinese authority beyond its borders. Any foreign-made product that contains Chinese rare earths or uses Chinese processing technology could also require Beijing's approval before export. The controls reach all the way down the supply chain. To close every loophole, China added a 0.1% de minimis rule, set to take effect on December 1st. This means that even trace amounts of Chinese origin material can now trigger the export licensing requirement. A magnet made in Germany, an EV motor assembled in Japan, a chip machine in the Netherlands. If they rely on Chinese inputs, they're now under China's watch. Beijing explained the move as a matter of national security, not retaliation. But the timing, just days before the Trump-Xi meeting at the APEC summit, showed clear intent. China was reminding the world that while tariffs make headlines, control over the elements that power modern industry decides who really leads. And that quiet, invisible power was now being firmly reasserted. The announcement of China's new rare earth export controls sent shockwaves through defense and technology sectors across the world. In Washington, officials realized that what once looked like a supply chain issue had become a matter of national security. Every advanced weapon in the US arsenal, from F-35 fighter jets and Virginia-class submarines to precision-guided missiles and radar systems, relies on Chinese rare earth magnets. Even a small disruption could delay production lines and raise costs dramatically. What changed everything was the foreign direct product rule written into China's new export regime. It means that even if a company manufactures outside of China, its products could still fall under Chinese jurisdiction if they use Chinese technology, equipment, or materials. A magnet factory in Germany, a drone component line in South Korea, or a chip tool supplier in the Netherlands could all suddenly require Beijing's approval before exporting. Overnight, China moved from being the world's supplier to being its gatekeeper. Western analysts called it a mirror image of the US restrictions used against Chinese chip makers, but in reality, it went further. Rare earths are not just a single product, they're part of thousands of supply chains. Under the tightened rules, Even products containing the smallest fraction of Chinese processed material can now fall under Beijing's export licensing system. It's a global web that places every major manufacturer, directly or indirectly, within Beijing's reach. Yet, despite the alarm, Beijing made sure its message was measured. On October 12th, the Ministry of Commerce clarified that these were not bans, but regulations designed to ensure that exports serve legitimate civilian use. The spokesperson emphasized that China's actions are consistent with international practice and necessary to protect national security. The tone was deliberate, calm, procedural, and confident. China wasn't lashing out. It was defining the boundaries of a system it already controls. This was control without confrontation, a methodical assertion of power that left competitors unsure how to respond. And as global markets tried to interpret the signal, another move was already underway, one that would expand China's influence through cooperation rather than restriction. The global reaction to China's new export rules was immediate. Prices for rare earth magnets began to rise within days, and supply contracts were quietly rewritten across Asia and Europe. Manufacturers feared that every shipment could face delays as the new licensing system came into effect. Analysts at Nomura and ING estimated that even a 2-week slowdown could affect production in industries worth over $1.2 trillion, from electric vehicles to defense equipment. Japan, which imports almost 60% of its rare earth materials from China, rushed to secure backup deals with Australia and Vietnam. The European Union launched an emergency task force to study possible shortages in wind turbine and battery production. But alternative sources are limited. Building new mines and refining capacity takes years, not months, and most of the world's advanced separation technology still depends on Chinese expertise. In Washington, officials called the move economic coercion. Yet markets saw something different, a demonstration of structural power. Beijing wasn't blocking exports. It was managing them, deciding who receives what and when. That quiet control sent a stronger message than any tariff. Companies began stockpiling materials, and defense contractors warned that without Chinese magnets, delivery schedules could slip by months. The irony was clear. For decades, Western industries had outsourced the dirtiest and most complex stages of production to China. Now, those decisions were coming back as strategic vulnerability. Each attempt to reduce dependence revealed how deeply the system relied on Chinese supply chains. And while factories in the West scrambled to find replacements, Beijing was already turning toward a broader goal, one that would strengthen its regional position through cooperation, not restriction. The next move would take place in Kuala Lumpur, where a new trade alliance was waiting to be signed. While Washington doubled down on tariffs, Beijing unveiled a different kind of strategy. On October 28, 2025, at the ASEAN summit in Kuala Lumpur, China, and 10 Southeast Asian nations signed the China-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement 3.0, a deal covering a market of over 2.1 billion people and a combined GDP of nearly $23 trillion. It marked the quiet emergence of the world's largest trade zone outside North America and the European Union. The upgraded pact isn't about traditional tariff cutting alone. It adds 9 new chapters focused on the digital economy, the green transition, infrastructure, SME cooperation, product standards, and trade facilitation. Over the next decade, 92% of goods traded between China and ASEAN will move at zero tariffs, while new frameworks for digital and green cooperation are set to begin by 2027. Negotiations for this version started in late 2022 and concluded in May 2025, showing years of technical work behind what appeared to be a single signing ceremony. The numbers tell the story. In 2010, trade between China and ASEAN stood at about $292 billion. By 2024, it had reached $982 billion, making the two sides each other's largest trading partners. China's Premier Li Qiang described the pact as a demonstration of commitment to multilateralism and open trade, words that contrasted sharply with Washington's growing protectionism. For ASEAN countries, the deal offers access to China's massive consumer base and capital investment. Manufacturing hubs like Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia will see more Chinese EV and battery firms setting up local plants to qualify for preferential rules of origin. For Beijing, it secures regional supply chains just as Western markets turn hostile, linking its industries with Southeast Asia's young labor force and fast-growing consumer demand. While tariffs divide economies elsewhere, China's approach binds them together. The agreement strengthens its position as the anchor of Asian trade, a network builder rather than a barrier maker, and signals that the future of growth in this region will depend less on confrontation and more on cooperation. China's two moves, tightening export controls and expanding trade ties, now work like the twin engines of a new economic order. The rare earth restrictions give Beijing leverage over industries that depend on its materials, while the ASEAN Free Trade Agreement 3.0 opens fresh channels for cooperation and investment. One limits what rivals can access, the other broadens what partners can share. Together, they redefine how influence is built in the global economy. As supply chains in the West face delays, Southeast Asia is becoming the new hub for production linked to Chinese technology and capital. Cross-border projects in renewable energy, digital infrastructure, and logistics are rising, financed directly through regional mechanisms rather than Western lenders. More trade is now settled in yuan, and Chinese banks are expanding clearing systems across Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia. This quiet shift reduces dependence on the US dollar and gradually weakens the global demand for US treasuries that once anchored financial stability. Investors sense the change. The share of Asian holdings in US long-term debt has been declining for 2 consecutive years, while capital inflows into China-ASEAN projects keep increasing. The center of gravity in global finance is beginning to tilt eastward, towards self-financing regional systems where trade, currency, and investment move through new routes shaped by Beijing's design. Rather than confront the West head-on, China is building an alternative framework, one that blends control with cooperation. As these policies take root, the world's economic pulse is shifting, and the quiet power emerging from Asia is starting to define the rhythm of global trade and finance. The question now is whether the US can adapt or China just changed global trade forever. Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe, as more global economic shifts are already on the horizon.